So I made a short the other day trying to figure out the furthest a Fallout DLC has gone in terms of distance from the location of the base game. Because shorts are restricted on time, I only have 60 seconds. Quite a few assumptions were made to save that precious time. So today I want to take a deeper dive, explain some assumptions and reasoning, and maybe come up with a more in-depth look at how far Fallout has gone. In terms of distance, of course, not morals or anything. In the short video, I limited it to only covering the DLCs, and because of that, we only covered games that had additional downloadable content, that being Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4. But because these longer videos aren't restricted by time, let's cover all 6 canon games. Let's start with some ground rules. The initial point of reference for each game will be the starting locations. That would be Vault 13, Arroyo, Vault 101, Good Springs, Vault 111, and Vault 76. And the point which we will be measuring to will either be the furthest marked location, or the primary location that a DLC takes place in. We will use Google Maps as our source for all the distances and everything. Trust me, this all makes sense, and if you're confused now, hopefully you'll catch on as we go. Without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and we might as well cover them in order of release, so we're off to the year 1997. Great year, by the way. Fallout 1 takes place in the nuclear ruins of Southern California. The world map looks like this. Now with some advanced technology called photo editing, we can overlay the game map onto the real map, and I think it looks pretty good. So using this, we can find out where our starting point is on Google Maps, and then find the furthest distance from that. The game starts us at Vault 13, and the furthest marked location that we can travel to looks like the glow. According to my trusty map, Vault 13 puts us somewhere northeast of the Inyo National Forest, and the glow near Interstate 8 between San Diego and Mexicali. If we measure that distance, it's around 550 kilometers or 340 miles. Bam, one game done. The furthest you can go in Fallout 1 is about 550 kilometers. On to Fallout 2. Fallout 2 also takes place around California, but this time a bit more north. Now, the eventual good news is that we won't have to overlay these maps again, as from Fallout 3 onwards, the scale of the game isn't as precise. If you're wondering why, this is likely just due to how each game handles exploration, with the open world games being, well, open world, and Fallout 1 and 2 being random encounter exploration games. Anyway, let's overlay this bad boy. Again, not bad. Some locations like Redding don't match up well, and Vault 1315 and the NCR seem to have moved a bit, but let's chalk that up to in-game scale and whatnot. It's not a big deal. Anyway, the game starts you in Arroyo, and it looks like the furthest marked location would be Vault 15. If we try and coordinate this on a Google Maps, Arroyo is a little west of Klamath National Forest, and Vault 15 looks to be southwest of Mammoth Lakes, which comes to about 600 kilometers or 370 miles. Alright, no more overlays. As a substitute, we'll be using landmarks and whatnot to try and determine some of these locations. This should mean that we get a bit more precise, but again, this isn't really a science. I'm not going to comb through Google Maps looking for a small wood bridge that spans a tiny creek, taking us to a helipad. Approximation is what we're going for. After all, what's a few 10 or so kilometers? Anyway, Fallout 3 of course takes place mostly in the ruins of Washington, D.C., The young lone wanderer starts their journey from Vault 101, and unsurprising to most, Vault 101 doesn't actually exist, but to almost no one's surprise, Arlington, Virginia does. Vault 101 is northwest of Arlington, and what would happen to be northwest of Arlington in real life? A town called McLean. And that is where our Vault 101 will be. The first released DLC was Operation Anchorage, obviously taking place in Anchorage, Alaska. The distance between McLean and Anchorage is 5,400 kilometers or 3,500 miles. How now, brown cow? Before you get too upset about this, yes, Operation Anchorage is a simulation, so just like it was in the short video, we won't be using that distance. The Lone Wanderer only travels as far as the Virtual Strategic Simulations facility. Now, where is that VSS building, you may ask? Well, in-game, the location is near Arlington, so there you go. McLean to Arlington is about 9 kilometers or 5.5 miles. The second released DLC for Fallout 3 was The Pit, taking place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So from the Liberty Bridge in Pittsburgh to McLean is about 300 kilometers or 180 miles. Next up, we have Broken Steel, and I believe the furthest marked location for that is Adams Air Force Base. And while an Adams Air Force Base doesn't exist in real life, not too far away from Washington, D.C. is an Andrews Air Force Base. Ding ding ding, that one sounds like a winner. From McLean to Andrews Air Force Base is 30 kilometers or 19 miles. Probably one of the easiest locations to find is Point Lookout. Almost 100% certain that the DLC takes place at Point Lookout State Park, which is 120 kilometers from McLean or 75 miles. And don't you worry for everyone keeping track at home, we'll tally up everything at the end. And lastly for Fallout 3 is Mothership Zeta. Now, this probably requires the most explanation, so let's get started. The description for the DLC mentions that the mothership is orbiting Earth miles above the capital wasteland, so I think the easy and most likely scenario is that the ship is sitting in something called geosynchronous orbit, which is at 35,786 kilometers from the Earth's surface, matching the Earth's rotation and just constantly sitting above the capital wasteland. Now, that is the distance if Zeta itself doesn't utilize thrusters or anything. If Zeta was powered down and sat itself at 35,786 kilometers from the capital wasteland, it would always remain above the capital wasteland. If that distance were reduced, Zeta would need to compensate by engaging its own thrusters as to maintain an orbital period of 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds, that being the same as a single day on Earth. Because alien technology is, alien, we don't know how close Mothership Zeta can get to Earth while consistently maintaining an orbit that matches Earth's rotation. And so, for the short, I chose 400 kilometers as that's the distance the International Space Station is from Earth. And if you look at pictures of Earth from the ISS and then pictures of Earth from Mothership Zeta, they're kind of similar. So that's the distance I chose for Mothership Zeta. It just means that the galaxy-faring alien spaceship is moving really fast, which should be expected when it comes to sci-fi spaceships. With all that being said, I think we can say that Mothership Zeta is at a constant distance from the Earth's surface, specifically the alien crash site where the Lone Wanderer is eventually abducted. Now, where is the alien crash site? Well, in-game, it's southwest of Old Oni, and Olney is a place, so let's go around there. So from McLean to southwest of Olney is about 20 kilometers or 13 miles. So the Lone Wanderer walks 20 kilometers, then gets abducted 400 kilometers upwards, and if we combine those distances into a vector going from Vault 101 to Mothership Zeta, then we get a whopping distance of 400.5 kilometers or 250 miles. Now, in the case that Mothership Zeta is orbiting at a different rate than Earth, then the distance between McLean and Mothership Zeta will be constantly changing as the two are moving asynchronously to one another. But we can easily find out the maximum instantaneous distance. The furthest possible point McLean and Mothership Zeta can be from one another is if McLean and Mothership Zeta are on polar opposite ends of the Earth, forming a line that goes directly through the center of the Earth. Something like this. Not like this or this, but this. Therefore, we can see the distance being the diameter of the Earth, which is 12,742 kilometers, or 8,000 miles, and then we can tack on what we determined to be the orbital distance, which we said was 400 kilometers or 250 miles, making the maximum instantaneous distance 13,142 kilometers or 8,250 miles. And I promise you that that is the most math we will cover in this video. I'm done speculating about orbital distance, orbital period, velocity of alien technology in a fictional video game. Feel free to discuss more about it in the comments, but to me that was extremely tiring. Let's move on to the game that has the absolute most amount of controversy when it comes to where these DLCs are located, and that is Fallout New Vegas. The first DLC released for New Vegas was Dead Money, taking place at the mysterious Sierra Madre. Now, the location of the Sierra Madre is designed to be a mystery. Its exact location is intentionally vague. Maps to the location were lost, the resort was touted as a city of gold that's been lost in time, and the only person that has truly found it and lived was Father Elijah. So it's just a big mystery. Your guess is as good as mine. How are we going to know where it's located? Well, there are a few clues in-game that lead me to my conclusion of it being somewhere in the Grand Canyon area. First is the secret Elijah ending. The ending narration mentions that the cloud moved west, so that would put the Sierra Madre to, well, the east. The Sierra Madre broadcast mentions that it's located in the luxurious expanse of open desert under clear starlit skies, so that would put it in a desert. And then Dog/God makes what I'd assume to be a trek there. I can't imagine he knows how to pilot a vehicle or anything, so it can't be too far from the Mojave. So I figure it would be around the Grand Canyon area near the Colorado River. If you disagree, that's fine. The location isn't meant to be known anyway. Again, feel free to put your 2 cents or opinions in the comments. But the Grand Canyon is about 150 kilometers or 90 miles from Goodsprings. Moving on. Next is Honest Hearts. Finally, an easy one. Honest Hearts takes place in Zion Canyon, of course, and Zion National Park is 270 kilometers from Goodsprings or 170 miles. That's probably the easiest one to locate in the entire series, to be honest. Another controversial one is Old World Blues' Big Empty. Again, the Big Empty isn't a place many travelers are welcome, so most people tend to avoid it, leading to its exact location being a mystery. But I believe it's near and around Kingston Peak in California. Here's why. Joshua Graham from Honest Hearts mentions that the Big Empty is somewhere south of the Divide, which, as we'll learn later, is northwest of New Vegas. So the Big Empty is to the west of New Vegas. Then, on top of that, in the same dialogue, Graham lumps the 127, Long 15, Big Empty, and the Divide when talking about the NCR supply lines. This leads me to believe that it must be around the Long 15 and the 127. And what do you know, Kingston Peak is near both. That's just what I believe, take it or leave it. I'm sure there are other suitable alternatives, but the distance from Goodsprings to Kingston Peak is 44 kilometers or 27.5 miles. And to anyone who thought the Big Empty was on the moon, it's not, as Legion explorers have reported about its location, and the Legion definitely doesn't have the technology to go to space, nor does the Courier, or Elijah, or Ulysses. Only Jason Bright has got a spaceship, come on guys. And lastly, for New Vegas is the Divide. This one is pretty easy, as this ghost town website mentions that Ashton, Nevada is in Nye County, and that fits the bill for where the Divide could be, and matches the name of one of the destroyed cities from the accidental nuclear blast. Goodsprings to Ashton is 150 kilometers or 92 miles. On to Fallout 4. So first off, where do we start? Well, in-game of course it's Vault 111, but where would the real-life location of Vault 111 be? Well, in-game it's northwest of Concord, so why don't we just start a little northwest of Concord in real life? With that settled, let's move on to the 2 add-ons, shall we? Alright, the first one up is Far Harbor. Releasing in May 2016, this DLC takes us to Far Harbor. Now, it's no secret that Far Harbor is really meant to be Bar Harbor, Maine. The idea is that the sign got a little smudged up around the B, making it look like an F. So from northwest of Concord to Bar Harbor is around 330 kilometers or 200 miles. Next one had a wee bit of controversy. The Nuka World theme park takes some obvious inspiration from Walt Disney World in Florida and Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. However, Nuka World can't possibly be in Florida or Pennsylvania, as it's in Massachusetts. So we need a Massachusetts theme park. And as the metro to take you there is on the west side of the map, the Nuka World Park is likely to the west. And the only amusement park with a respectable size, no offense to any other parks in the Massachusetts area, is Six Flags New England. This seems like the most likely spot. So from northwest of Concord to Six Flags New England is about 110 kilometers or 70 miles. And that wraps up all the games with DLC. On to the final, canon game of the series, Fallout 76. Now with the pit releasing later this year, that will likely be the furthest the Vault Dweller from 76 will go, but since that's not out yet, let's just go with what's in the game. And as of today, the Vault Dweller from 76 has yet to break the borders of the world map, so we're looking for the furthest distance from Vault 76. So Vault 76 is kinda surrounded by Point Pleasant to the west, Flatwoods to the south, Morgantown to the east, and Grafton to the northeast. But when I plot these locations on a map, you get this weird triangular shape, indicating that, like other games from Fallout 3 onwards, the scale and positioning of the Fallout 76 map isn't one-to-one with real life. This should be expected, especially in an open world game, as no developer is going to make a one-to-one scale map. Anyway, so now we have some wiggle room with where Vault 76 could be located, and I'm just going to go with somewhere in the middle of this triangle looking shape and say it's in Glenville. Now for the furthest marked location away, because Vault 76 is in the northwest part of the map, the furthest marked location would be to the southeast, so let's go as far southeast as possible. And this leads me to the Cranberry Bog region. Now again, the Cranberry Bog doesn't exist in real life. From what I can tell, much of West Virginia is green, not red, but Watauga, the city in the Cranberry Bog, does exist, so we just need to go a little more southeast of that, right? I even tried to line it up on a map using 76's world map as an overlay. If we put Vault 76 in Glenville, and we try to match up the Wataugas, we get the furthest location, about 30 kilometers southeast of Watauga. This puts Fallout 76's furthest marked location from the starting point at about 130 kilometers or 80 miles. And that wraps up all the furthest locations for all canon games. Let's tally everything up. This is what the final summary looks like. As you can tell, going to space is quite the journey, but surprisingly, if Mothership Zeta sits at 400 kilometers above the capital wasteland at all times, it's actually in Fallout 2 that you travel the furthest distance. And on the other side of the spectrum, Operation Anchorage is only a hop, skip, and jump away from Vault 101, making it a perfect DLC to snag a nice suit of starting armor. Anyway, that's all from me today. Comment, like, and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
It's said, war never changes. Men do, through the roads they walk. And this road has reached its end.